Hello, puppies and kittens. I am speaking with Sohel. You were on my panel for the Arabic-speaking ex-Muslim apostates when we were doing the series on an infidel reads the Quran, and you are still in, I think, some other part of the world doing ex-Muslim apostate activism. Is that correct? Atheist activism in the Arab
Yes,
world. All
exactly.
right.
And there is thanks to the social media, a huge change in people's minds. Like many people, especially the educated, are like they cannot hide it anymore. Like this religion doesn't make any sense. So um,
So, what do you
yeah,
wanted to talk? You wanted to talk today about. You said you have evidence that Muhammad was not a prophet, and
yeah. Like I
I believe
was
I just watched a debate about that this last weekend. Somebody was debating that. I think.
yes, yeah. Like I was working with a friend of mine who uses a nickname, and I like to talk about him. Here, I translated his book from Arabic to English. The author of the book, who is using a pseudonym, which is Aziz Al-Rububi, and it's important here to mention that Aziz is using this name rather than his real name because he
Yeah.
lives in the country of Kuwait, uh, in the Persian Gulf, which is an Islamic law abiding state, meaning it applies Sharia that could put Aziz's life in danger.
Yeah.
And, and Kuwait, like most Islamic countries, adopts a medieval point of view when they deal with religion. And Aziz al-Rububi believes that he can be like Ibn Warraq or Christopher Luxemburg or Talal al-Rawandi in promoting like his ideas and opinions while he's staying like safe in the shadow. Yeah.
So the book he wrote, I guess in Arabic originally, that you translated to English is the phenomenon of prophecy.
Yes,
Correct? Is that the
that's right.
okay? All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's talk about that then.
Yeah. So the phenomena of prophecy, Muhammad's prophecy under scientific scrutiny, 2023, that's the English version, is a book that looks somewhat different from its Arabic version for the simple reason that when an author addresses a specific audience of a specific language, the author has no choice but to remain in the mindset of that culture and probably will need to explain some issues less or more based on the public understanding of these issues. For these reasons, there was an additional part in the translation of the book because I did see that the author, for example, was talking to the Arabic speaking audience, uh, and it will be more confusing to the Western audience if I translated literally everything, like take it literally. So I added some explanations to the issues I discussed. And I'm ready to
Okay.
give you an example if you like.
Well, I can already think of a number of examples if you were to take the little colloquialisms of English and translate that into another language. I mean, like with Russian, for example, they have the phrase "может быть," which uh, which means literally "may it be" or "it may be," but it's taken as an exclamation. The way we was, oh, holy shit, that kind of thing. So if you were to translate it literally into English, that wouldn't make any sense. We wouldn't understand what was being expressed there. So I mean, is that
Exactly.
it? Would that be a fair comparison to what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But there is another issue is that Arabic is different from English in one of the yeah like, one of the reasons is that the same text, if you just change the punctuation, the whole meaning will become different. Uh, and I will explain that. Yeah, let me give you an example here. Um, for example, uh, this verse, which is the verses 1 to 4 in Surah Ar-Rum, which is Surah number 30 in the Quran. The verse says in Arabic, and if you are okay, I will read it in Arabic. So it
Yep.
says, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. And the translation says, the Romans have been defeated in nearby land, yet following their defeat, they will triumph in a few years' time. God is in command, first and last. On the day the believers will rejoice. That's one of the translation I chose to, yeah, among other translations, of course. Um, and yeah, let me, for example, add to this that many Muslims share the story of this verse because with each verse for the Quran, they have a story, as they believe that Quran was they came down like slowly. It wasn't a complete book. So many Muslims share the story of this, which is narrated in the tradition, that the Quran of Muhammad predicted the victory of the Romans over the Persians within years ranging from 3 to 9 years, which is funny, like how God, who is infinitely powerful, cannot tell people like the exact time of the victory. Yeah, the victory which is coming. So, so if it
Well,
in
fortune cookies and your horoscope and all of these are all always have to be vague. That's the only way they can be right.
exactly, and it will get even more weird. Like, however, so someone who does not understand Arabic will have problem comprehending what is the issue here. Unlike Western languages, Arabic needs some punctuation to be fully understood. For example, when we read the verse in English, the Rome or Romans has been or they have been defeated, it is clearly saying that Rome has been beaten and they are the losers of a war or a battle. But in Arabic, because of punctuation, one can change the entire meaning of the verse by simply changing the punctuation and reversing the entire meaning, to say that Rome was victorious by being able to defeat their opponents. So it's, yeah, just simple like that.
Okay.
And
So,
yes, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, just I'm sure from your work of doing the translation, that's probably very fascinating. I'm thinking that the audience probably isn't as fascinated by that.
Yeah,
So, on to the point. It is of what we're talking about: the phenomenon of prophecy, or evidence that Muhammad was not a
yes,
prophet.
yes. What was the question, please?
Oh, we were going to continue to the topic
Oh,
with
yeah, yeah.
the phenomenon.
So if you can please share the picture of the verse. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, as you see, like I will explain this. We must not forget that at the 7th century and the 8th century Common Era, Arabic did not have any kind of punctuations back then.
Oh, now I follow you. You're saying that a subtle change in the punctuation will change the entire meaning of the sentence, and at the time that the Quran was written down, all the little dots That
Yes.
yes, they didn't get
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
This okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what
It's
you were
okay. No, no.
going for. I'm like, why is
Yeah.
he prattling on about this?
Yeah, I told you it's confusing. I know.
Okay, please accept my apologies. Go
It's
ahead.
okay. Yeah, yeah. I apologize. Accepted. So the entire section of verses argued over here, Surah 30,
Hmm.
verses 1 to 4, are written so methodically, so to be easy for reciters to change course and reverse the entire meaning, as
So just
shown
make
in the
just make sure we get a reminder. This is Surah what?
Surah 30,
Surah 30
verses 1 to 4.
to 4. Thank you.
Yes. And so I put here in this example, it's the same verse. I chose with the same verse, but I wrote it twice. So you see, they have the same letters. So as shown in the two lines, first line is the verse as written in the Quran, and the second uh, is also legitimate reading. It's still like imagine two contradictory readings, and the second one is still a legitimate one, a legitimate verse, but
Yeah,
they
just to
have
remind everybody, I mean,
yes,
when we were doing the show for an infidel reads the Quran,
yes,
before we would have our panel discussions, before I would
yes,
invite you on and everybody to explain,
yes,
I would first read the surah and I would have to read it in multiple versions, up to 6 different translations,
yes,
because they are all different. They all and sometimes it took all 6, because the same verse in the previous 5, they don't match each other, and I can't. What the hell is this trying to say? Because they were so disparate from each other. And
exactly,
so that's why I needed help of people who spoke Arabic, who could then come in and say, okay, well, I can understand your confusion, and here it is. It's a cultural thing in this culture, or in this history, in this region. This is what the colloquialism means, or this was the commonly interpreted belief, or whatever. Things that I would never be able to figure out on my own.
yes,
So that's why we did that. But I would have to write an article of my understanding of what I had just read, and I would have to compare everything I just read and what I thought it said with other translations, and wherever they deviated, well, now I'm going to get confused. So that's what you're talking about here. You're saying that Muslims themselves have the same problem when trying to translate from a document that didn't originally have the punctuation.
exactly, because they themselves agree that there are other readings of the same text, but they have only one, which is called the official version. But in the books you can say, well, they can read it this way or differently, and they have like about 10 legitimate readings. So yeah, so let me explain this, the difference between two verses. So the first line is the verse as written in the Quran, and the second one, even though it's still a legitimate reading, but it states the opposite. So, for example, chapter 1 discuss. No, sorry, the first verse says that Rome was defeated in the nearby land, and after they have been defeated, they will be victorious within several years. The second one, it says the opposite, that Rome is victorious in the nearby land. And after they're victorious, they will be defeated within several years. So you see, like, they have changed the whole meaning. Yeah, just,
I'm seeing the same thing as I look up these verses in
yeah,
Noble Quran, and then I compare that to Quran.com.
yes. And but you see that punctuation, how they're different. For example, the first word has different punctuation, as you see. And if you go to again a similar word, غلبهم, غلبهم, yeah, you just change the way you say it, So, for example, غُلِبَت, which means defeated. If you say غَلَبَت, it becomes uh, victorious. The whole meaning is different. Yeah. So probably Muhammad wrote it. He chose to make the Quran this way. So if the Romans were defeated, he would say, "No, no, 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 no. I meant the other way around. Like you are reading it wrong." Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at Quran.com, and this one is confusing. This doesn't take me to the same context at all.
You, okay. Yeah.
This
This
is
is
hard.
the
Yeah, I can
verse.
tell what chapter the surah should be Ar-Rum, right?
Yeah.
Because
Room number 30.
which and ruled Ar-Rum. Now, does that mean
Yeah.
about Rome?
Yeah. The Romans. Yeah. In Arabic, when you
Okay.
say a room,
Okay,
yeah,
here I
it
found
means
it
the
finally.
Romans.
All right, so
Yes.
the three versions I'm looking at, they do all say the same thing here. The Romans have been defeated in a nearby land, yet following their defeat, they will triumph within 3 to 9 years. And the matter rests with Allah before and after victory, and on that day the believers will rejoice. Okay, and
Yeah.
it's like you say, okay, 3 to 9 years. We're a little vague,
Yes.
but okay, yeah.
Yeah, because the word says Bilai Sanin means several years, so they are not sure.
Now, in Noble Quran, it says that in the nearer land,
Yeah,
and then
because
puts in parentheses, it says Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine, and we don't get that parenthetical in the other versions. So, I mean, how is this implied?
the word Adna, which means nearby, also
Hmm.
another trick in it, because now some Muslims argue that is the lowest land, which means, so they say, oh, okay, you see that this is like God knows everything, so he called this land, which is below the sea level. So it's a scientific miracle.
Well, yeah, one of my confusions there is, having read the Quran, is how many times the Quran brags about how clear it is. And yet we have we have multiple translations and a panel of Arabic speakers who all know the original language and all the inclinations and everything, and yet we still can't be we're still not able to clarify the
Yeah,
mud that the
exactly.
Quran is.
And if you go to the Meccan surahs, the short surahs, it's even worse. Yeah, it's horribly worse. So yeah, this book by my friend Aziz Al-Rububi, we explained. Yeah, like I added this picture to the book also. You will find it there too. So we explained like several.
And if somebody's looking at this and they can't tell a difference. I mean, there's not a lot of visual differences. Like one of the dots is one of the punctuation marks in the above is a dot, like what a period would look like, and in the
Yes,
below it's a hollow circle. It's a
yes,
small hollow. So it's like you drew an outline around the period but left the period empty.
yes.
So it's very subtle.
Yes, it looks like Chinese for most Americans. They don't understand. Yeah, understand it, and I understand because it is hard. Like even for me, like I learned Arabic, and it's not my first language, by the way. Arabic is my second language. My uh, first language is Kurdish, which is similar to Persian or Farsi. Yeah,
Got
but
it.
I learned Arabic when I was a kid. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. So I think we're done with the picture here.
All right.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So do continue. So uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I can't predict where you're going to go with this. I tried once and if I failed, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut from here on.
No, you're okay. So, chapter one, for example, and the book made of 4 chapters. Chapter 1 discusses the phenomenon of prophecy through this human history in brief, like, and indulge in some details discussing Muhammad's prophecy. An example of this chapter, like Sumerian myth, Enlil, the god of air, destined the sky from the earth and furthered the earth from the sky, separating them. The first adventure of mind, this is the book where he took the quotation. Yeah. And then the Bible says the same thing. Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate waters from waters. And God made expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above the expanse. And so it was, like Genesis chapter 1, 3 to 5. And also we find the same thing repeated in the Holy Quran, that have those who believed not seen the heavens and the earth were one single entity, then we parted them both. Uh, Surah 21, verse 30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
so
often talked about how the scriptures, both the Quran and the Bible, have this Bronze Age flat Earth cosmology written into them. And in the case of the Quran, I've seen so many apologists try to argue how scientific it is, but the part that you're talking about right now, where the sky is kind of equal to the plane of the earth. It's like there's a plane of the sky and then a plane of the earth, and they both have similar boundaries. So if the Earth were on a flat projection map and it's, I don't know, 15,000 miles across, something like that, in diameter, then the sky would be much the same thing. And then they so God just separated the sky and then pumped it up like instant popcorn, so that it's in a dome over the top. And that's how the sky spreads out. And people read this now, having forced themselves to believe that the Quran is true, and maybe they know a little bit about cosmic inflation, they interpret it to be something entirely different. But how can you have 78 billion light years or whatever it is in comparison to a sphere that's 8,000 miles across and talk about them like they're in any way equivalent? There's just no way to defend that, and they certainly can't say that the Quran is clear for saying something so ridiculous.
exactly, like if you read the Quran, and in chapter number 1, we explain lots of these texts. Like when I was translating it, that many of these verses, they are tricky, and that's why they use it to say, oh, it shows that Quran explains many scientific uh, phenomenon, and which is not true, because Quran also says that the sky or the heavens is like a roof, which is a very medieval, way of
It's
thinking.
older than that.
Oh, older, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a common belief throughout Asia. From Persia and so on, from the Middle East basically eastward. So there's India, China. There was a lot of different places that have folklore that talks about this kind of a disc with a dome over it, or something very similar to that. Maybe there's a disc that's enveloped in a sphere, and the world is not the sphere; it's the disc within the sphere, and the firmament is the sphere. But it's very similar. You just have the dome over the top. They don't all have the dome on the bottom as well, something like that. But this was just way a lot of people in ancient times throughout, like I said, the Asian continent, from the Mediterranean back. There was a lot of cultures that had this kind of a concept. So it's not surprising that it shows up in the Bible. And of course, the Quran largely copies everything from the Bible. And there you get it again.
Exactly. And Aziz explains in this book how the Quran repeatedly says the earth and the heavens, the earth and the heavens, as if they have the same, at least the same size. Like the author of the Quran thinks that the heavens are just exactly the same size, like the earth, or even smaller, because it says that God created the earth and everything on it in 4 days, and
Yeah.
then this God goes to heavens, which
And
is
we have to
funny.
remind people that the sky is solid. It's a solid dome. It's not atmosphere. It's not oxygen. It's described in the Bible as rakia. It's like a molten glass or crystal. It's mirrored glass. One passage describes that it should be mirrored, and
Exactly.
that it looks like it's hammered out. I think the Quran makes the reference to the sky being hammered into position. So, God stretches it and he also molds it or fashions or whatever. But we're talking about a solid structure here. And we're not talking about something that's billions of light years across or bigger.
Yeah, there is no way, of course. Like, I mean, any Muslim who says that or otherwise, I mean, he's cheating on himself and he's lying to everyone. Yeah, because there is nothing like that in the Quran. And another evidence is that if Quran was uh, scientifically true, like it talks about how the moon moves and how the sun is moving or swimming, but then never ever talks about Earth moving. No, the Earth is just there. It's not moving. Everything is moving around the Earth.
It
Yeah.
also says that the sun and the moon can never overtake each other, that they're each on their tracks across the firmament. So again, the common concept is that the sun and the moon are somehow connected to this dome that they move across, as are the stars as well. And I don't know how people necessarily figured that out, but they knew that the stars were like in a fixed position. So, by one description, pinholes in the curtains of night, but in the Quran, it describes them as being literally lights in the sky, that they are lamps, literally lamps that are
Yes.
stuck in key places in the firmament, just kind of randomly dispersed, where angels angelic guards of God's hotel, heaven, which
Yeah.
sits in the top of the expanse of this. It's an invisible hotel in the expanse of this firmament. And I don't know if it's too small to see it because it's too far away, or if it's invisible, or what the deal is, but it's a physical hotel in the expanse of the firmament. And if demons or genie get too close, and so that they're able to overhear
Spy.
what God is telling his people, well, then angels can grab stars, lamps, out of the firmament, the solid dome of the firmament, and hurl these stars at the genies to drive them backward. That's where you get shooting stars from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what the Quran says. And also, the another strange thing is that the sun goes like when if you go to the west, that what the Quran said that when Dhul Qarnayn, or the guy with the two horns, some interpreters say that it's Alexander the Great. Some others say another guy. That when he reached the west, he saw the sun setting in what they call like a spring of mud, which
Yeah.
is
My,
weird.
my
And
favorite line about that,
yes,
apart from Muhammad claiming to have split the moon in half,
yes,
and everybody looks at the moon and says, um, but I don't know what they did. They certainly didn't see two moons. Maybe they're looking at a half phase moon. I say, what would are you telling you expect me to believe that the reason we only see a half moon now is because why were we able to see a half moon last month and then a full moon after that? But no, they're not thinking about this rationally at all. They have the sun and the moon on the same track as each other, and the Quran says that the one may never overtake the other.
yes,
So, and again, somewhere else in the Quran, it says that if they were to overtake each other, in fact, they're supposed to overtake. They can't overtake each other, but they will eventually, and that will be a sign of the last day, the day of judgment, when the sun and the moon overtake each other. So when there was an eclipse in Medina or Mecca, wherever it was, they just, oh, well, that's just interesting. Doesn't that completely just, if that's not the day of judgment and you're having a full solar eclipse in Medina, why didn't everybody just become atheists the next day?
Exactly. So, yeah, Muhammad, like he was a trickster. Like he's very clever. Like in using religion, controlling other people. Like for example, he would come up with a verse like allowing or forbidding some stuff, but then you will see him do everything the opposite. Like he will have as many women he likes, he will eat when he wants to eat, he will not pray. Like even Aisha, I love Aisha, like his wife. She's awesome because she in her hadith shows she shows him how he is a liar. Like every time he learns some stuff from the Jews or from Christians, and then he will tell people, "Oh, do you know that when after people die, they get tortured in the tomb after they are dead?" And Aisha tells us that he just heard that from two Jewish women. So I mean, I like Aisha. I love her.
Yeah, well, I know that Joseph Smith, when he formed the Mormons, he really admired Muhammad. He had clearly read the Quran, and he modeled himself after Muhammad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And yeah, even declared himself the American Muhammad at one point.
Yes. Uh,
And I noticed similarities before I knew anything about Mormon history. I noticed similarities between Mormon apologetics and Muslim apologetics, and I could see a lot of parallels there. I didn't realize that they were there by design.
okay. Yes. Should I go to chapter, explain a little bit chapter 2? So, chapter 2 discusses the reliability of early biographies of Muhammad. For example, the Muslim may confront us with the following fallacy. So how can you guide us with narrations that you say are not valid, attributing them to the Prophet? So Muslims argue like why non-Muslims use Hadith, for example, or Quran when we argue with them, and that's a fallacy. Um, so they say either you accept the Islamic narration or entire in its entirety with the miracles, or you reject all of it. But to respond to this, the author says that he says, yeah, that's him saying, when I use narrations to criticize Islam, I use it as a matter of what the opponents committed himself to, like the Muslim. You are the one who said, those are my sources. So,
The Quran is a bit different than the Bible in that it has a lot more
yeah,
connection to real history than the Bible does. I mean, when Muhammad talks about particular people being involved in a battle in a particular city, if the people existed, the battle took place, the city is real, and there's a lot of what he says that is actually true. Whereas in the Bible, most of those stories are pure fabrications. Adam and Eve, the global flood, the Tower of Babel. There's so much in there there's moments where you get a link to a legend or that might have had a kernel of truth historically, but I mean it's rare in the Bible. The,
yeah,
the, the Quran has a lot more. There's stuff in there that we can verify. This person likely lived, and the city certainly exists. The time period, all these things are consistent. There's literary techniques going on that imply that yes, these things were actually witnessed. Unlike the way the Bible is written, it's not written that way in the Bible at all. But the Quran shows that hey, that there were people in the 7th century who saw this, who wrote this, who said that this there's a current there's a degree of truth. There's a historical connection there. That doesn't mean the moon was split in half. It doesn't mean
Yeah,
any of that. But I'm just saying that the Quran has more historical relevance or um, connection. It's
yeah.
more connected to reality than the Bible is.
You, you remind me myself when I do some of my friends, even the atheists, argue with me like how you use the Torah or the Jewish holy book as an evidence for this race or this people to live there, and they think, okay, how an atheist could believe that? So I tell them, well, I deal with it as a book, a historical thing written. It doesn't mean that I believe uh, the theology of it, or
No,
I
it's a
believe.
compilation of it's a compilation of fantasy folklore with myths and legends and from
Yes,
different sources, and some of which can have a metaphorical truth to it. A very little of it might actually have a historical truth to it. Aspects of that, I often use the example of like in the third movie of the Indiana Jones series, he goes to Germany and literally bumps into Adolf Hitler. Germany existed, Adolf Hitler existed, everything that you see in the time period of the movie, that's all consistent. That doesn't mean that Indiana Jones ever existed, nor anything that he did in any of
was
those
true.
movies.
Yeah.
None of that ever happened. It's just you have to understand that some stories are going to be placed in real. Spider-Man is based in New York City. Clark Kent lives in Metropolis. It's a fictional city. And so you've got in the Bible, for example, you've got fictional places and fictional people, and then they're mixed with other stories that involve real people and places, but the stories are fake.
Yes. Yeah. Like, for example, imagine if the whole earth is destroyed in an atomic war or whatever, and then in the future, some people came and discovered Sherlock Holmes' novels. They would say, oh, this guy is real because it's based on real places. But it's not. So the Quran is the same. Yeah, I mean, there is a debate in the atheist community and the non-religious community in the Middle East whether Muhammad really existed or not. But me and my friend Aziz Al-Rububi, we believe that he did exist, and we think that giving a trust and giving authenticity to the Quran or the Hadith doesn't make it better for Muslims. It's actually worse when you see this Hadith and this Quran to be true. You come even more convinced that this religion is bullshit. It's all full of hate, violence, anti-women, anti-LGBT, anti-life, in to just to make it simple. Yeah. So it doesn't make it better if we say the Quran is authentic. It's actually even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right. So
yeah, go ahead.
we've been at this almost 40 minutes. I would like to
Yes.
keep it under an hour. So
Yes.
let's continue with that goal.
Yeah. So like for example, chapter 3 is called Evidence of Prophethood. Discusses mostly scientific miracles in the Quran, as claimed by many Muslims. The idea of scientific miraculousness is based on the fact, okay, and the fact, as Muslims claim, that there is an information present in the Quran that preceded modern science in discovering the natural phenomena. But the miraculous, this is the point Aziz focused on, and it's very important. Uh, he said that the miracleists who believe in this use new interpretations that are different from traditional interpretations that were said by Muhammad, companions, the family of Muhammad, if we take the Shia books, for example, and the followers. Like even to the third, fourth, fifth century, there is no mention of any scientific miracles in the Quran. I mean, it's just a new thing made up by some people who benefit from it. They gather money, and also they want to promote their faith or religion or whatever. Yeah, missionaries. But the traditional and the Quranic explanations, yeah, they have zero mention of that. So that's very important to remember. Um, Chapter 4 discusses all the major stories of Muhammad's life, like it's kind of summary of the Sirah, how he was intolerant, fanatic, and even Muhammad contradicting in
I
many
like you have a
situations his own. Yeah.
you have a subchapter in here. Was Muhammad mentally healthy?
Yeah, we talked about that too in the book. Yeah, which I believe you will put it in the description so people will. It's on
Oh yeah.
Amazon. Yes.
You want me to put the Amazon listing? Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And the book, I mean, it's $2. I believe it will be easy for many people to reach it. Uh, yeah, so as one example, in chapter 4, Muslims tell us that Arabs were in a state of extreme ignorance and that the Jews were concealing the Bible. Yeah, that's what they say. But when we go back to the religious sources themselves, we discovered that those allegations by the Muslims are incorrect. In one famous trusted hadith, Aisha tells us how Muhammad came back from the cave of Hira, shivering and asking his first wife Khadija to cover him up, and that she took him to her cousin Waraqa bin Nawfal, that's his name, yeah, Waraqa bin Nawfal, who, okay, in quotation, who during the pre-Islamic period became a Christian and used to write the writing with the Hebrew letters. He would write from the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to write. End of
Wait a minute.
quotation. Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt so much, but
It's okay.
he's writing the Gospels in Hebrew.
In Hebrew. Yeah.
The Gospels were written in Greek.
Yeah. But that's what the hadith is saying. And the Islamic tradition does not talk about Gospels. It always refers to the Gospel, as if probably the people around Muhammad originally they were believers in one Gospel. They translated probably the Gospel of Matthew, a version of it, which was in Hebrew, and even in academic research in the West, they say that Matthew probably was originally in Hebrew, and we just have um, the Greek copy of it, yeah, the translation. So yeah, this hadith shows that Khadija's cousin, Muhammad's wife, Khadija, her cousin, was um, a kind of rabbi, as someone who knows the Bible very well. And here probably is writing using Hebrew letters um, and translating, yeah, the gospel. That what it says, but we are not sure what they do mean. Also, in another hadith, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Khalifa, the second successor of Muhammad, says quotation that Umar ibn al-Khattab came to the Prophet with a book that he had received from some of the people of the book, and he read it to the Prophet. And the Prophet got angry. And he said, "Are you perplexed about it, O Ibn al-Khattab? And by the one who in his hands is my soul," meaning Allah, "I have come to you with it white and pure." And they always refer to clarity as white. Yeah. And to the other thing as black and dark. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the terminology Muhammad uses a lot. So, yeah, he got mad with Muhammad and so on. So, anyway, in this book, he puts a lot of original text. Like he would add some explanation. Um, uh, we add, for example, some medical sources or that prove that this thing is wrong. But mostly the book is full of original Islamic text, and it has many links to websites, sources, yeah, many things.
All right. I will make sure to put in the Amazon link. Do you want the Kindle version or the hardback version to be linked
Uh,
in?
uh, well, I only have the Kindle version published on Amazon,
Okay.
which yeah, I will send you the link if you don't have it.
I got it. I was noticing
Okay,
that there was only the Kindle. So
yeah, it's
yeah, that's
only the
fine. I'll
Kindle
put that
version.
down.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we need to cover?
No, I just want to tell you thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm honored to be on your channel. Yeah,
Well, thank you very kindly. I used to be a very vain person, but humility has taken over, and I don't take compliments real well. But thank you very much for that. Proud to see that you have your name in print like this, so and that you're still doing what you're doing. It's good to see you
thank you.
again. Since I kind of missed when we did the infidel reads the Quran series when that came to when we finished the Quran. I was sorry to see that team necessarily disbanded. So
We should do it again,
yeah.
probably.
All right. Sohel, thank you so much. Good to see you again, sir.
Yeah, thank you.